Do you think sales is a bad word? When you hear the word sales, I wonder what images come to mind. Whatever your relationship is with selling, I'm glad you're here. Let's have a conversation about how to sell like a good human. Hi, welcome to Conversations with Good Humans. I'm your host, Catherine Brown, and I'm author of the book called How Good Humans Sell. Empathy, empathy, empathy. What does that word really mean? Today on Conversations with Good Humans, I'm talking with some of my friends who are fellow sales trainers and business development professionals about the topic of empathy in sales. This recording captures the best of our discussion from social audio, where we held a live discussion about how to demonstrate empathy while selling. I wonder how many times you've heard the word used and you've nodded along but not really grasped what it is or why it matters. Our diverse and experienced group really gets into what empathy is, as well as how to demonstrate empathy to our buyers. I loved hearing the different perspectives from wildly successful sellers who share examples of what it means to embody empathy while selling. I think just about everybody out there can get better at this, including me, so I'll be listening to it again as well. This podcast episode will help you better understand empathy as an emotional intelligence trait, as well as have practical tips to try. Check the show notes to find these moderators in the discussion with me: Liz Heiman, Yoram Stone, Vicki Gurney, and Liz Cortes. They're all on LinkedIn and they're all people you should follow. Hope you enjoy. What we're doing today is we're talking about empathy in sales. So I'm saying this for the benefit of everyone, including my moderators. I am really doubling down on my own research on this. I'm literally researching scientific journals because I'm curious about what work has been done to date on how you teach empathy. Because I think we like to throw this word around, and I will say, as someone who's had some formal marketing training through the story brand method, there's as you all know, there's a whole community of marketers out there who like this 7-part framework called story brand. And story brand says empathy, 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 empathy. There's all this emphasis on empathy, and actually there's never a definition of empathy. And I think people nod their head and they feel like they want to be a good person. So they feel like they know they're supposed to be marketing and selling with empathy. And I don't think people know what they mean when they say that. And so I thought that would be a really fun discussion to first say, what do you think it means to sell with empathy? And then what are really practical things? So I made this my LinkedIn post today. It's already gotten a lot of traction, which is really fun. So you all can jump over and join me on that too. And so that's our topic, is empathy in sales. So I'm really excited about that. Let me ask my mods just to go around and introduce themselves. And then after everyone gets to speak up here at least once, I'll open it up pretty quickly for discussion. So Vicki, I'm going to ask if you'd like to go next and just introduce yourself. And also, what would be some opening thoughts about what it means to sell with empathy?
Thanks, Catherine. So I am Vicki Gurney, and I work with companies to develop and implement processes to build pipeline and to hit those revenue targets. And I was looking up some definitions of empathy myself because, when these questions get posed, we start to question ourselves, right? And what we've have experienced the meaning, the definition of a word to be throughout our life and so forth. So I'm going to go back to my default. To me, empathy is when you're able to take on the position of the person that you're speaking with, to put yourself in their shoes, if you will. And that doesn't mean telling people, oh, I know exactly how you feel. It's more of actually, or it is completely just feeling a version of how you think they are feeling with the situation that's been described or that they're in the middle of.
Thanks, Vicki. Appreciate you, and I'm glad you're here. And I know you think about this, and I know that you're an empathetic seller, so I'm really glad to have your contributions. Yoram, let me let you go next. Would you introduce yourself and answer the question, what do you think it means to sell with empathy?
Hi, my name is Yoram Stone. I'm speaking to you from the heart of Manhattan. I've been selling for a little over a decade, sold primarily SaaS, but also sold in the finance space as well. My ideas empathy is not that different to Vicky's, really. I think it's really about understanding your prospects and clients about what they're looking for and understanding the challenges they may have in actually buying. But I think at the same time, sometimes empathy is rather than just, you have to give them a little push if it's for their own good. Sometimes people are a bit reticent to move ahead or open their minds, but you're convinced because you've done your research that this is really going to help them. So it's your job sometimes to just give them that nudge and that push along, so long as it's good for the client. But having said that, I feel this is a subject which I really need to do some work on. So I'm really glad you're raising it today. So my ears are open.
Thanks, Yoram. Appreciate that. Liz, good to see you. Would you introduce yourself and would you share what do you think it means to sell with empathy?
Yeah. So I'm Liz Heiman. I'm a sales consultant. I started my career at a company called Miller Heiman, and I help companies build their sales operating system so they can grow and scale. So they're putting all the pieces in place that they need. I choose a different word than Catherine chooses. I choose the word compassion. And they're very similar. So I say if you want to sell, you need to be curious, you need to be compassionate, and you need to be creative. And those three things allow us to be empathetic, because if we're curious, we're thinking about what's going on with our customer. How are they feeling? What are they thinking? What's impacting their decision? What's going on in their world? If we're compassionate, we're able to understand, we can have compassion for their frustrations, for their fears, for their life situation that may be interfering with a decision. So we can be compassionate and we can be creative, which helps us to figure out under those circumstances, understanding what's going on with them, how can I creatively help them either make this decision later or deal with what's going on so they can make it now or whatever. So the three of those things really help us to be empathetic. But I like the word compassion because it really takes it to another level of don't just understand, but actually feel for them, and try and help. So it's different words, same meaning.
Liz, thanks so much. I really like your 3 C's. So those of you that jumped in, Liz was just sharing that in lieu of the word empathy, she likes to say curious, compassionate, and creative. Liz, that triad of goodness that you just listed reminds me, Jolly and I have a friend of mine, is a client of mine named Lawrence, and Lawrence is one of the best referral givers I've ever met. I literally asked him to quantify this the other day, and he told me that on any given month, he makes 10 to 12 introductions a month. So that's both, hey, I think you guys would like each other, and something you each said made me think of you. And so, it's not necessarily a sales lead, and then a fair bit of them are sales leads. So I just thought that was amazing. But Lawrence says that he practices listening with creativity and imagination. And the reason he doubles down on imagination is he said, you cannot have an imagination for the good for your prospect if you're not listening very carefully, because you're trying to read between the lines, you're clarifying what you don't understand. And he brings in that word imagination, which I wondered what you thought about that. I like that word.
I think creativity and imagination go together, right? If you have never been in the situation that the person's in, the best you can do is imagine what it would be like to be in their shoes, whether it's just simply trying to solve a problem, whether it's dealing with politics within their organization to get something done. If you haven't physically been there, if you haven't had that experience, then try to imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. Try to imagine what that person would need. And I think these are all great words that help us to be good sellers.
Thank you, Liz Heiman. Liz Cortes, I see that you made it. Would you introduce yourself and would you answer the question, what do you think it means to sell with empathy?
Thanks, Catherine. Empathy and sales. I think when you can tell the story, or you can think I was late here because I was on a writing workshop, and it's normally over right when we start this call, but it was kind of around the same topic. And we went back thinking about, what is the transformation that we give to our clients, the people that we work with, and coming up with one word. And then we were writing about remembering when we first learned what we're experts in, like going back there. And so I was just like flowing, doing this free write. And I was like, okay, I need to stay here because that is how I get the empathy. When I think about the stories, when I think about where I was and I take the time to write and journal that out, or, go live on a video and share the story is another way that I do it. That is how I always stay connected to what is it like when a customer comes to me and I'm on that sales call. And like after I have this here, I have a sales call and I'm already in the empathy space because I did the free write. Now we're in empathy now. And so I know the sales call that I'm going to have at 11:15 when this Pacific Standard Time, it's going to be, I just know it's going to be so great because I did that work to really get there. My word for the year is rooted. So maybe that's why I'm extra empathetic this year. Cause I'm like, okay, I want to be rooted, and like, I don't like grounded because that's like you're grounded and you're like a little kid. I don't understand when people use that word, but I have the word rooted, like rooted in love. And I just want that to show up on all my sales calls. Thank you, Catherine.
Liz, that is really lovely. Thank you for that feedback. Across all of us here today, we've sold into most major industries for, in some case, like me, decades. So we really got a deep bench, and I'm really proud of the mod group that I have invited and brought to the room. So please be sure to follow everyone if you think this is helpful, and follow these individuals who I've encouraged to introduce themselves so that you will know how they can help you and your company as well. My question, and sort of the next direction I'd like to take this, is to acknowledge that once you get to know someone a little bit better and they share something hard that's going on, whether they're your client or still a prospect, not yet a client, those are situations where I think it can be easier to show empathy. You've already built trust. And so if someone lets down their guard and tells you that they're struggling with something, you have a chance to have this human to human moment. I think a lot of people can envision how that happens later. But I think that one of the things that master sellers, people who really sell like good humans, they can express empathy and build that relationship quickly, at least open the door toward it right from that very first call. This is the sort of thing where we risk being contrived. And I wanted to say, I'm just going to say this one time and I won't say it again. If you don't really love people and you don't really care about them, then everything that we'll suggest from here on out can just be an act. And that's not really being a good human. We're assuming that if you're here and you keep showing up, that you deeply care about selling the right thing at the right time to the right person. So that is a foundation for being a true empathetic seller who's not manipulative. So I just want to put that out there because I feel pretty strongly about that. That being said, assuming those things are true of all of us, what do I say and do at the beginning of the relationship to start to develop this relationship that has compassion and empathy?
I have an idea. One of the things that you do is you actually listen and actually really hear what they're saying. And as you mentioned earlier, ask those follow-on questions, dig a little deeper, give them permission to say how they really feel. And that would be the one that I would go with first.
I was literally just going to say the same thing. So sometimes the best thing to say and the way to show you really care is to say as little as possible. Make it about them. Get them speaking about themselves. But at the same time, I would add, have some questions. Don't make it a cross-examination, but have one or two questions that show you've at least done some preliminary research about them or their company or their organization about where they want to go to. So at least you can ask some relevant questions. And if you don't know that, if you're struggling to really find a fit, but there's still a reason you're calling, I would say be very open up front. I've occasionally rang up people and say, listen, this is what I know about your company. This is what we've done with others. This is why I think what Don Vamos could help you. How far off am I? I mean, talk to me about the challenges you're facing. Make it about them, as Liz said. Oh, sorry, Vicki said.
Those are really both great things. And Yoram, I'm going to piggyback on what you're saying a little bit, where if we think about the golden rule, treating others like we'd like to be treated, to some people that might seem like, well, of course, but I don't think it's well, of course, because I think depending on the sales organization, you might have such high volume coming in that it's actually very challenging to research before a call, or maybe that information's fed to you, or maybe you have to go get it on your own. All those circumstances could be different. We have people in the room that are sales teams of one, which I am right now. I mean, I have other people work for me in other roles, but I'm a sales team of one. So I have to do all my own getting ready so that I can show up to say, I studied your site and I have some questions and dive right in. Treating however much time we have scheduled to be together as very special by being ready to jump in with thoughtful questions requires some research. So I really love that point you made.
I think it's really important that we stop and think about what is this first call that we're talking about. So if I'm calling somebody I've never spoken to before, I'm cold calling them because I think I can have a solution, versus if I've got a referral, or if somebody's responding to content, or another situation. I've met someone somewhere, we've had a little bit of a conversation, and now we're going to have a real conversation. Each of those things are really different situations and require different preparation and thought. I think the first thing is you can do as much research as you can. And then after that, you have to assume some things that we know in general. For instance, if I'm talking to a CEO, I know that when I talk to other CEOs of companies like his, they tell me that sales is chaotic and frustrating and unpredictable. And so I can ask him, is that what you're experiencing? Or if I get a referral, I can say, hey, I understand that you've got some issues with your sales organization that you need some help with. You want to tell me about what you're hoping to accomplish and what things you're experiencing, right? So you understanding that each one of these different kinds of discussions, we're going to have to start with it from a different place. And what we want to do is let them know that we have some understanding of what they might be experiencing. And we want to understand, is that what they're experiencing? And is that what they need help with? And then we can have a conversation.
Liz, I really appreciate that, saying, what is that first call? That's a great point, because again, there's so much diversity in the room. So even when I ran a professional cold calling company, which I did for 17 years, the purpose of that first call was really to schedule a longer call. It was to state the basic value proposition and say, hey, I know I've caught you at a time that you were not expecting me. This is the nature of my call. This is the reason. Would you like to have a conversation? This was particularly important in early internet days. We didn't have the kind of email marketing and ways of easily, inexpensively marketing to people prior to calling on them. So even the cold calls were real short in my mind and in my experience. And then that next call, which might be anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, I suppose. I don't typically like to book an hour until I know something's further qualified. But where we are starting to do that mutual qualification and back and forth is what I'm thinking on that first call. Is that what we're saying, Liz?
Yes.
That's great. Thanks. Anybody else? How do I early in the sales process start to demonstrate compassion as Liz is describing it, or empathy as I'm describing it?
Catherine, I feel compelled to throw something in right here. But I want to throw this in case there are some really early career sellers that are listening to this. And because we keep talking about, the things that we already know, or we think we know from the research we've done and so forth and so on. This is going to seem so simple for those of us, probably everyone here, but just in case, if you don't know, don't act like you do. That's the big thing, because that is not being a good human, acting like taking those assumptions and rolling with them as if they are truth when you have nothing to base them on. So it's okay if you don't know to ask those questions to find out. That's a whole lot better than just rolling and not listening because you're definitely not being empathetic.
Vicki, I think that's really great. It's making me think about early when I was, so I guess it was my third job out of university. I was in an inside sales position. Probably now that position would be called SDR or BDR. At the time, everyone was just called a sales manager, but I was doing front end qualifying for other people as in the inside sales organization as an employee. And I was calling on someone, and I had not done sufficient research, like what Yoram was saying a few minutes ago, to really be ready for the call. And the person stopped me in the middle of my pitch and said, hang on just a minute, Catherine. He said, I'm curious why you're calling me. And I said, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And I started to go into my pitch again. He said, no. I'm asking why you're calling me. And I was stunned, embarrassed. Even now I can feel how my face like flushed a little hot. Like I was surprised, and I didn't know the answer because I was unprepared. And it illuminated the fact that I was really going through the motions to do my job. And I didn't ever do that again because it was embarrassing. It was not a good human thing to do. I knew it the minute he called me out, and it was a gift. It's a gift sometimes, when sort of like the wound of a friend. I think there's a proverb about that, right? It's a gift sometimes to be called out, especially if it can be pretty early in your career, because you can take corrective action.
May I add something to that? I think there's a wonderful opportunity. If somebody does call you out, if you actually don't just go through the motions, but you actually say to somebody, I understand you're this, to that, and they said, no. Oh, really? Thank you so much for saving me some embarrassment. Pardon me for asking. I've been totally misinformed. And the reason I thought your response for this is your title. And they said, no, I'm not necessarily sure I'll deal with that. It might not be my thing. Sometimes you can, if you're humble and you say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'm saying, listen, hopefully you could help. I'm wondering then if you could help me. Can I tell you what I do very quickly? And you can tell me if this has anything to do with you or somebody else, or whether I should just not waste any more time for anybody in this organization. And most of the time, they'd be very willing to do so, unless you caught them at a bad moment. But it's a wonderful opportunity to really sort of break that ice that's automatically there when they pick up the phone, sales call. They may, even if they can't help you close the deal, they could probably give you a lot of insights in the company. If they see you're actually willing to learn and you've got that humility, you'll be amazed how far that takes you.
You sound like a real person, what you just said, right? So you just kind of politely back down and ask for help. And I think that was great modeling.
I brought up about this concept that a coach called me out. And lately, I've been getting out of my comfort zone and doing things just to grow. I'm in like a growth part and feeling like really unconfident, and I'm trying new things, and it just train wrecks and anger, all this stuff is coming up because I'm in a growth phase. And the coach called someone else out on the call because they said, I can't believe this happened. Like, I can't believe I hit this goal. I can't believe they kept saying this. And she was like, stop saying you can't believe, or you're surprised that like something amazing happened in your life or your business. Instead, say as expected. So like in my case, I relate to me as expected. Last week, I did a sales call with 2 franchisors. One of them had 3,000 franchisees, and they want me to come speak and work with all those businesses. Like as expected, I sent out a $30,000 proposal yesterday, as expected. And it's just, I think the heart connection, as well as paying attention to the words and the stories that you share, really connects with people and shows empathy, that you're the real deal.
Thanks, Liz. I am going to model and practice the as expected statement. I really like that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think that this is my proposition to everyone today, is that this is something that we hear people talk about doing, just like we talk about emotional intelligence or selling with emotional intelligence. It's like, what is it? What is it? And how does it look? And I think that even in that first discovery call, what Liz Heiman and I were agreeing is this is the first call that is not necessarily the cold call, although if the cold call evolves into something where we're mutually qualifying and we keep talking, maybe it's probably that we've agreed to a set time and we have 15, 30 minutes, something like that scheduled where we are talking about the value proposition, talking about the prospect's goals, and deciding if we're going to keep talking. I think that in that very first call, one suggestion I'd have for people that I've been practicing myself that's, I think, working well is you don't have to ask the question directly of them, but if while you're on that Zoom call or Teams call or face-to-face or on the phone, if you ask yourself, at this moment, what might this person be feeling? At this moment, what might this person be feeling? Simply that asking yourself of that question in your own head, I think will shape what else comes out of your mouth. And if you think the space is there where something seems fairly evident to you, you can validate that. You could say, it sounds like what you're describing was blank, exciting, disappointing, frustrating, better than expected, fill in the blank, right? Is that true? Right. So I think you could even take a guess, but you give them a chance to volley back to you. What I don't like that I hear people say is they'll say, I know exactly how that feels. Okay, that is not true. That's not true. That cannot be true. You have not lived the life they've lived. And even if you have sold to this persona 500 times, you do not know what it's like to be them. And I think that is not a good human thing to do. So I'll pause with that.
I agree. And I find that to be a habit that was, I still am breaking that habit because I believe that at one point that was my intent was to be empathetic, right? But realizing that that's not accurate has really helped me. But I will admit to making that mistake, Catherine.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. I think the intention or heart intention can be good. It's a risky thing to say that could be. I mean, I think it's absolutely, like in the absolute sense, I don't know how it could be true since we literally haven't been them, right? But I recognize that a lot of times people are saying that and they mean goodwill in doing it. It's one of those tricky places where nuance in language and being more careful about our words helps us and them. Sometimes we have to hear that modeled.
And I would love to point out that it was my daughter that expressed that to me a few years ago. That no, I did not know exactly how she felt as a teenager. So there we go.
I often say, I've been there. Oh my gosh, this must be so difficult for you. I've been in a similar situation, or I've been there with my teenager, or I've been there with my business. I don't know exactly how you feel, but I can imagine. And so rather than, I give them some camaraderie by saying, I can empathize with where you've been. I know how hard it is, but other than that, you can't assume that you know exactly. But we can find words that help them to understand, or help let them know that we have some understanding of what they might be going through.
I was just thinking of in the past when I worked as a salesperson and had people listen to my calls, they would, one trainer, she was like, you are trying to get them to be your friend too much. You're here to sell stuff. You're here to paint the gap and stop trying to get them to like you on a 15-minute sales call. And that translated into, she also hired me for coaching for the program that I was selling because I sold so much. I sold more than her that month. I think we did over 100,000 that month. And I helped her with that. And then she's like, I need help to fulfill on what we just sold. And can you help me with this? And so I did that. And some feedback that I got from someone that actually quit and asked for a refund for this program I sold is she said, Liz talks too much about her experiences. And I remember that was so first of all, was like, it's hard when someone's telling me, the trainer's like, you are trying to get them to like you too much, like stick to the script, follow this. And then now it's my very first time being a sales funnel like coach and like teaching them, how did we make 100,000 that month? Like, how do we make this happen? And I'm coaching someone and I'm telling too much personal stories. So for years, that was back, I'd say 2011 when this happened. And that hit me hard for like a long time. I really could not figure out what the appropriate balance was of sharing versus just saying a statement like, I understand, or I get what it's like. And I love it when the website says those empathetic statements so that before they get on sales call with you, hopefully they did their research and checked out your website to see if they want to hire your company. But that's something that's still is kind of a struggle for me. That's why I can come on here and share stories, but like on a 15-minute sales call, like that balance is tough. So if anyone wants to share about the balance and how you've overcome that, it still gets in my head once in a while, even though this was years ago. And both those, when I'm coaching, I remember that girl that quit and asked for a refund. And then I remember that sales trainer telling me, don't get people to like you.
Well, I think, though, at the same time, we don't want to underestimate the power of story, right? So, I love what you're saying, because what is that balance between I'm talking to somebody, they're not understanding, I could tell a story that will help them understand what I mean, versus it's all about them, not about me, and how do I help them? How do I decide whether a story is appropriate or not? I think there's some balance there that could be useful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think the key is you should always be kind and courteous to everybody you interact with. Number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, you never know who they're going to speak to, or you never know what power they may hold, even though you may not expect it. Number three, it's good practice. So when you speak to the people that are going to make things happen for you, you're in the habit of being kind and courteous. And I just want to actually add one thing about stories. I think probably the best thing to think about stories is if you're going to tell a story or anything, it's ask yourself, is this going to help the person I'm telling them? Why am I telling them? Is it going to entertain them? Is it actually going to make things better for them? Or am I just maybe saying this because I think it's a great story and I assume they're going to want to hear it? They may or they may not. Make it about them. And I think that's one of the fundamental tenets of selling. I realize everybody is different. Everybody's in a separate thing. So yeah, there may be some synergies and maybe things are similar and you can use that to get a conversation going. Don't assume, turn it around to them. Use it as a key to get them talking about themselves and understanding what they're dealing with.
Yoram, thanks for that. And Liz, I'm rolling this around in my brain because it's possible you were going overboard with your story and that there was too much time as a percent of the total call. Too much time was on your story and not enough was asking about them. They could have been saying that. It also sounds like it could be the comment of a jealous person because you have a very warm way about you. And if that's harder for someone else, that there could have been some of that there too. You do not have to be a crazy extrovert, and a person literally cannot be everyone's best friend. That's not possible. But I kind of take issue with this, with the position that you can't be friends with the people you're selling to, because I think it's the division of thinking of such strict roles that I think it harms you, because then you create these boundaries that make it weird when they do share something personal or you want to be more empathetic, and all of a sudden you realize you didn't set up the relationship. You have this just strictly professional relationship, and now being a good human feels odd.
If you don't know what StrengthsFinder is, it's Gallup. It's like a personality test that only focuses on your strengths, not your weaknesses. And when I met with this coach last week, I shared with her a struggle, and it was interesting because she was like, well, looking at your strengths, your number 6 on your list is one that's called relator, and that's a relationship building strength. And it says, she gave me this handout, and it says, what do I bring and contribute because of the strength? And for relator, if you guys have this, it says the ability to work hard with friends to achieve goals. And I'm like, man, like back, I mean, I thought about, back then in 2011 when I was told these two comments, and it just like hit me hard. And that was a while ago. I was younger and it hit my ego. But I'm like, that's what I do. Like, I pretty much always hire friends to work for our company as employees, and people are like, oh, I can't believe you do that. That's crossing a boundary. I mean, I work with my husband, a dual relationship. And we hire people from our church or friends, or like, I love partnering with other businesses, and working together on projects. And so that's like I think some of us we just are friendly. We want to have lots of friends, and we want to do stuff with our friends, and we want to travel and hit goals and accomplish things together, and bringing our family and our friends along for the journey and the events, whatever the things are. And I think it's just more fun to do it that way. And it's actually, I didn't realize till last week that this is a strength of mine.
It's interesting. You just reminded of something my mother once said many years ago when she was looking for an assistant. And she hired two people, and I said, how'd they go? She says, I was saying to the partner, one of them is definitely better qualified than the other. But the other I just found I had a better connection with. And I wonder if that's the same way. In fact, I don't wonder. I know to a large extent, this is a large way. People feel comfortable doing business with you. They have a good connection. They're more likely to do it with you. And, if somebody else's product is way better and they've done a much better job selling it, okay. But if there's not much in it, even if you may be missing a few things, they may just feel, you're putting more, they're being more empathetic. They care more about us. I just have a warmer relationship with them.
It's not just your buyer that you want to build a relationship and have empathy with, but people who are influencing and playing all different roles in that process. So appreciate that. We could do a quick lightning round. Like, what's one thing you want to take from this? That might be cool to hear from our very experienced sales consultants. What is something that you want to practice that's been brought up that got your attention? That could be fun. Vicki, you're going first. Lightning round. We're going to go around real quick and have everybody say 1 to 2 sentences of what you want to practice differently.
Liz C. was talking about the balance between the storytelling and basically sticking to the script. And so I'm going to work on that.
Cool.
Balance.
Thanks so much. That's great. Yoram.
I don't think it's necessarily doing things differently, because I realize I have been doing a lot of things right. I think I can do them a bit better, or a lot better. I think I can try and make an effort to sound more genuine and to try and tune myself in a bit more with the prospect and client.
Thanks. Liz Heiman.
Yeah, no, this was a great conversation. I think sometimes when we're selling like good humans, we get really caught up in doing the right thing. But I think Yoram is right that even though we're being compassionate and kind and empathetic and all of these things, at some point, if this person needs to buy this product in order to get where they want to go, we have some responsibility to help them get there, even if it's a little bit of a push. As opposed to just, okay, everything is fine. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. I think we just still need to do a little bit of pushing.
Thanks, Liz. Liz Cortes.
My favorite was just hearing the stories. It could be just one sentence you share. You don't have to share a long, giant, long story. It could be 1, 2 sentences that just make me feel related and connected. And it's like, wow, like we've been in a similar spot. Like, you get me. I like you. I want to be a friend. And so that's my favorite.
Thanks, Liz. And I think I'm going to keep practicing. This is a fairly new practice for me. So I'm going to keep practicing asking myself during calls with people, what might this person be feeling? What might this person be feeling? I may or may not also ask them some version of that, but I'm going to train myself to be attuned to wondering, because I think that will shape my questions. Thank you all for this great conversation. I am so enjoying this research on empathy as a pathway for emotional intelligence in selling. And I have tons of notes that things that moderators shared about what they think it is and isn't and how you practice it. And I'm so excited about that and appreciative about that. And so if you've enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the folks on the stage. I'm so glad you joined us today. If you would like me to come and speak with your organization about how to sell like a good human, please contact me through the website howgoodhumanssell.com. Thanks, and talk with you again.